I'm calling to open session the Monday, May 11th, 2026 Board of Education meeting. First thing I'm calling is I'm looking for approval of the agenda. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Rhodes has made a motion to approve the agenda. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. McKenzie is second. Is there any discussion? I call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. All righty. I will be looking for a motion to go into closed session for the following reasons. Applicants for new hires, resignations, volunteers, transfers, extra pay for extra duty, and any other personnel matters. The reason for this being public discussion of applicants and employee names and personal information could discourage people from working for the board and contain sensitive personal and biographical information. Personnel information is protected from disclosure under the MPIA. The other topic for discussion will be discussion of negotiations with Kent County Public Schools bargaining units. The reason for that being to maintain the integrity of the collective bargaining process. For those two reasons, I'm looking for a motion to go into closed session.
I'll make a motion.
Ms. McKenzie's made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Rhodes has seconded. Is there any discussion? I call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It is unanimous. I am gaveling this meeting. We're going to go into closed session. We will return in open session at 6:30. 2026 Kent County Board of Education meeting. First thing I want to do is report on closed session. We talked about collective bargaining and personnel to be voted on in open session. No action was taken in closed session. Attending the closed session were the 5 members of the Board of Education, Mr. Costas, our legal counsel, Mr. Hushin, our supervisor / director of human resources, Dr. McComas, and Gail Manley, the executive assistant. Right now, I am looking for Ms. Swanson to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Sorry, senior moment.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
All righty. All righty, I will be looking for a motion for the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda tonight are approval of the minutes of the April 13th Board of Education meeting, approval of the minutes of the April 27th public budget hearing, a donation approval, policy series 6000 update, and personnel actions.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Ms. McKenzie's made the motion. Is there a second?
I second.
Mr. Queen made the second. Is there any discussion? I call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All righty, it's unanimous, Ms. Manley. All righty, Ms. Manley, is there anyone for public participation? All righty, we will move on. Dr. McComas, Superintendent's report.
Okay, great. So, we're moving quickly here. Personnel recognition, can we, we're going to play our monthly recognition video. And as always, thank you to everyone who nominated individuals. Go ahead, go ahead.
You are the May Golden Anchor Award winner and supports everyone at Rock Hall Elementary School. She is a friendly, kind, and common face for families and all community members that visit Rock Hall. She supports all teachers with anything they need. The school could truly not run without her. Capital winner for your exceptional leadership of a teamwork, a project, exemplifying commitment to Kent County Public School values for putting students first, outstanding collaboration, and outstanding commitment to excellence. You've got a teacher. How are you? I'm here to award you with the May Navigator Award for your perseverance, overcoming obstacles, innovation, and flexibility, exemplifying outstanding commitment to Kent County Public Schools. Mrs. Krause is and always has been the epitome of a phenomenal leader. Not only is she a dedicated educator for over 20 years, the work she is doing with the Kent County High School SGA is second to none. We are here to honor you with the award for finishing the bachelor's degree. So proud of you. With the Compass Award for teaching to doctor.
So again, thank you to everyone who nominated people and for those of you who put the video together. That's our recognition for this month.
Great jobs to the winners.
Yeah. Great things are happening. So I will move on. Is it okay?
Absolutely, yeah.
I'll move on to our final budget proposal for this year. As always, we know that we want to use our funds wisely to advance our student achievement, and that our mission is to create lifelong learners who are successful in whatever endeavor they choose in life. First, we're going to review our revenues and constraints, identify what is included in this final budget, and then look at the final balanced budget. Our students, as always, is our students' demographics, as you have seen in all of our preliminary reports, our students who are receiving special service supports. Our achievement, we know that we need to continue to push our achievement. While we've seen gains in ELA, we know that we're not where we want to be yet. And the same for our individual student groups. We know that there's disparity there, and we're working to close those gaps and ensure that all students, regardless of any characteristic, is performing at a higher level. Same for mathematics. While we made gains last year, we know that there are significant gains that need to be made across the board. And same for student groups in mathematics. We know we have our theory of action where we're investing robustly in responsive math and literacy instruction, and investing as well in our STEAM experiences for our students so that they are prepared to enter careers of their generation. And so this really talks about our science of reading work, and it talks about our mathematical reasoning, numeracy, and problem solving focus that we've been implementing with our curriculum. Here it really talks about our commitment to build the strength of our middle school, because we know when we go back and look at our data, those middle grades are where our weakest performance has persisted. We've been leaning heavily into grade 6 this year. And we look forward to, our students are actively in the process of taking this year's state testing. We won't get those results until the end of the summer. So typically the state board releases publicly however our students do in the spring. The first state board meeting in September, I think, is typically when that becomes public. So we look forward to seeing that. For this year, as we presented earlier, we see that our total revenue for this year is $32.5 million. That's after we set aside the concentration of poverty funds, which, while they are in the general fund, they act as restricted funds and can only be used for community schools functioning. Expenditure on our personnel, we are looking at $26.7 million of that revenue going to cover our personnel for this upcoming budget. Non-personnel, we did go through, and just as last year we zero-based, this year we went through and analyzed very closely how did our zero-basing compare with our actual spends for this year, and we were able to make some additional reductions and refinements and reallocations. And so our overall budget this year, you see $32.5 million by the time we take our personnel out of 26.7, and then our non-personnel of 6.6 million. That brings us down to utilizing our fund balance. Our total fund balance was 871. Did I get that right, Mr. Kirby? Thank you. And we are using, I'm proposing that we use $837,823.09 of our total fund balance. So for those of you who pay attention to our contingency, we are exhausting all but 33,000 of our contingency fund as well. I want to thank the board for authorizing the use of that for this year to really bring our budget within our means and optimizing our resources for this year. So that brings us to a balanced budget. So what's included? Oh, and I should say, this balanced budget, I will not be requesting any additional operating funds from county government. Thank you. That was, the work of our board. And what's included? So Galena Elementary, again, this is very similar to what we discussed last time. There's a few little changes that you'll see at the end. Preserve the lead teacher from the grant that's going away there. Preserving the social worker from the grant that's going away. I have a vacancy here in central office that I am reallocating that FTE to go to Galena so that they are on par with the other two elementary schools and have a teacher specialist. And then their furniture request, I will seek funding through a variety of ways to try to meet their request for furnishings. Garnett Elementary, again, preserving their social worker. We are monitoring their enrollment because they have a large kindergarten class, and I feel pretty confident that once I get a sense of what FY, our current budget's fund balance will be, that I'll be able to support that. If I could just, get a few more weeks, I'll be able to support that request. I feel confident in, but we'll monitor that enrollment. That's a normal practice. Oftentimes kindergartens grow in August, so that's pretty normal. Rock Hall, same things, preserving the social worker, also monitoring their enrollment. And again, that's a very normal practice. We'll see where things are throughout July and early August. Kent County Middle School, again, in alignment with our strategic plan around really building a robust and strong, high-performing middle school. We are building up resources there, preserving the lead teacher, which will help us with instructional coaching, preserving our social worker, one additional teacher. HR is working with the principal there if that position will either be a content or a unified arts. I know they really need a gym teacher because the gym class sizes were large. Reallocation of a 12-month secretary to address their summer support requests. There's a lot of work that happens in schools in the summer, believe it or not, with enrollments and transfers and programs. And then creating an extra duty for extra pay for extra duty, stipend for after-school supervision. We have been expanding after-school programming for the middle schoolers, and we want to continue to do that. And so, our current administrators will be there often from 6:30, 7 in the morning to 6:30 or 7 at night, day after day. So this will help provide support. This also helps build that pipeline for people who want to move into administration, because they can gain some real experience in the after-school program to help them as they pursue becoming assistant principals and principals down the road. Kent County High School, one additional special education through a transfer reallocation process, one additional science teacher, one additional physical education teacher through a reallocation transfer process, preserving their lead teacher, preserving a social worker, and then purchasing new science textbooks. And the principal will be the one, if it's biology or chemistry, and then the plan is next budget cycle will buy the other set of what they need. System-wide, one school psychologist for the Department of Special Education that will work system-wide, one speech-language pathologist, again, that will work system-wide based on case need. And I already mentioned the social workers. They are connected to student services. We talked about that already. Music curriculum has to come off the Title IV grant at this point because it's no longer supplemental. It is our core music program, so we're shifting that to the operating budget.
What's Title IV?
Title IV is a federal grant, and I forget the official name. I refer to it as the miscellaneous grant. It's technology, school safety. What else am I missing? Yeah. Fine arts. Yeah, you can see why I call it the grab bag.
Catch-all.
It is the catch-all, because 1 is for poverty, 2 is for professional development, 3 is for ESOL, 4 is the catch-all. There is a title program for Native American student populations, and I don't know if that's 5 or 6, but there are some other title grants that we just don't participate in because our population isn't large enough. New high school science textbooks we talked about, and instructional coaching will be provided through the 3 lead teacher positions and the teacher specialist, as we noted. I will say our 3 lead teacher positions are at our lowest performing schools, just so that you understand where they're concentrated, because I don't have a lead teacher at each school, but I have them at the 3 lowest performing of the 5 schools. And student support services, we will revisit the bus requests in October once we have this year's financial audit finished and we can see what the fund balance is looking like, because that's a one-time purchase. And then information technology, we have accommodated in the budget for the inflationary increase of the technology equipment that we have. And then I'm pleased to say, last year in the budget deficit situation, we needed to reduce 4 custodians. I'm able to restore 3 moving into the next budget cycle. And then overall reduction in force. So the big question is, of all the positions that we had at the end of the year, that through the generosity of both the Board of Education and our county commissioners, we were able to preserve a number of jobs for 1 more year. So where are we with that? I'm pleased to say that this year, by and large, the majority of those jobs have either been preserved, or as people did leave over the year through attrition, they did allow us to reduce by those positions, the ones that left. But we are unfortunately still in a situation where I need to RIF 4 instructional assistant positions. The positions that I'm taking out of the organizational structure are the instructional assistant positions for the library and media program. But as with all RIF processes, it's the least senior people who are really the ones who are reduced in force, and anybody above that may get reassigned through human resource protocols. Did I say that correctly, Mr. Hushin?
Let me ask.
Yes, sir.
Last year, we was supposed to lose additional 16 this year. Right?
Yes.
So out of that 16, we only lost 4.
Yes. There were others who left, and so
Yeah.
those positions are also, but they left on their own, and they were able to move on to their next chapter, which was the intention, was to hold on to the resource as long as we could and provide them a runway, because we know that in many cases they may be hourly employees, and their safety net may be less. So giving them a longer runway, I thought was appropriate.
Let me ask this, and maybe I didn't understand at the last meeting. At the last meeting, we were supposed to be able to save all 16. How come we're at the 4 now?
Yeah, we are at the 4 now because we found out late last week that we did not receive the pre-K 3 expansion grants that we had applied
Two
for.
schools.
If we had received those grants through MSDE, each of them, that one was for Rock Hall Elementary and one was for Galena, each grant brought with it 2 IA positions.
Yeah.
So we would have been able to shift those
We got
individuals.
the 2. Did they say why we did not get the 2 grants?
We have reached out, Mr. Porter reached back out to find out like what was some feedback. They have not gotten back to us around that feedback. And so I don't have any explanation for that yet, but we know that we'll continue to apply next year. As long as the state is offering the startup grant, we will pursue it. I don't know if they're, the state's in a tight financial, I don't know if they had less funds. I don't know if their allocation, if maybe we got one last year, maybe they're trying for a school system that didn't have one. I don't know. I'm
All
just
right.
speculating on that. But we did reach out and
Well,
they
we
have
got
not gotten back to
double
Mr.
whammy last time we met, because when we met 2 weeks ago, we thought all jobs.
We did,
So-
because I said if those grants came
We
through,
would have been
then
able
we
to
would have been
reserve
okay.
all the jobs.
Grants didn't come through, so we weren't.
Because we was going to reallocate 4 people.
Yes.
to it.
But also, we're going to have to pick up something.
Yeah, so the school nurses just reached, the health department reached out to us Friday and indicated that because of a new state requirement, the certified nurse assistants need to move from being hourly employees to full-time employees with benefits. And so that's an additional cost that Mr. Kirby and I we did our work on Friday and make sure everything was in order, and we can
Okay.
cover that.
Can you explain, about how the needs of our student population, why those nursing services?
Yeah, so it's so important that we maintain not just our licensed nurses, but our certified nurse assistants, because in some schools, the volume of students coming in and out of the health suite at any given time. So, of course, the licensed nurse is going to take care of the more severe cases, but those certified nurse assistants are able to administer medication under the supervision of the nurse. So it really helps us provide timely service to our students, especially if it's a low level daily service, maybe with medication, to be able to get students in and out of the health suite and back into the classroom quickly. And we see the amount of student medical support is just growing all the time, whether it's medication or, students with diabetes. I mean, there's a lot of expansion in medical support for students at large. Okay, so in the big picture, when we think about last year reducing 11.7% of our workforce, 12 months later, where we're at is 4 positions plus the ones that we had attrition. So that really kind of settles that final rectifying from that right sizing. And these grant positions you can see were preserved. And then the 2 student support specialists, those positions are not being preserved, but those individual employees, because they are certified teachers and we have vacancies, will be reallocated.
Fine.
So the position's going away, but the individuals are still employed with us
Will they be reassigned into a classroom?
Mhm.
All right.
based on their certification and vacancy and need. And then I think this is the final slide, yes. And so they're just bringing back that we have balanced our budget. You can see our total revenue. You can see how much we're using from our fund balance. And you can see total expenditures down to 0.
I'm gonna clap for that. Yes,
you.
I am.
Thank you, thank you. I know that, it's a work in progress, and I just
Yes.
want to thank the board because, there were some changes between the proposed, but that's why you do a proposed and you come back and do a final, right? I want to thank, we had employees who came out to public hearing last month, and please, I think they know that we took their words seriously.
Yes.
And I just want to reiterate that I appreciate them coming out and putting voice to the process, that their comments were not on deaf ears, and that we'll continue to work in good faith partnership with our employees.
So, motion to approve fiscal year 2027 budget.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Ms. McKenzie's made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Queen has seconded. Is there any more discussion? All righty, I'm calling for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It is unanimous, Ms. Manley. Righty,
Thank you, everyone.
moving
Good
on.
job to all parties involved.
Thank you, Mr. Kirby. And
Definitely based on last year. Great job for everybody.
it seems very anticlimactic after last year's dramatic budget process. So, but thank you to everyone. Okay, for our monthly attendance monitoring, again, you'll continue to see improvements across all 3 data points that we're monitoring. We see, compared to the same time, the last month of attendance compared to the same time last year, up by 1.07%. Year-to-date attendance overall from the beginning of the school year, not just like the month of April. We see improvement at 1.65%. And most importantly, we see, just shy of a 10% reduction in chronic absenteeism. So our schools and their efforts around attendance campaigns are demonstrating, we have proof of concept here that those things are working. And of course, we know students have to be present and in school in order to learn. And so this is, of course, part of our foundation of achievement. So again, I look forward to seeing how our students are doing when they're state testing right now. And I look forward to reporting that at the end of the summer when we get that data.
Hopefully, the 10% is what's impressive to me up there. But hopefully, with the increase of attendance, like you said, you got to be in classroom to be taught and to learn, and hopefully that yields dividends on state testing.
Yep. One of the things too, just to piggyback on what your point is also the year-to-date 94% is the state expectation. And so I would love to see us come into June, the end of the year, still up at that 94%. It's looking close right there, but I remain optimistic. So, yeah.
But it still improves, so.
I'm just wondering, we look at specific grade levels. Are there grade levels where more problematic than others, or is there certain? Just
Yeah.
wondering as you dig into the data more, like.
I could bring, if you give me a minute, I'll pull up, see what I can pull up real quick here. But I can add that to our June monitoring. I was trying to add different things to keep it interesting.
I'll say this, not even for the June board meeting, but anytime we do attendance, like kind of show, I guess, the good and the bad, so to speak, with different grades, because like we want to focus on the middle school. Let's say the data does show sixth graders aren't coming to school, then we know kind of the effort we want to put into the middle school is kind of warranted, so to speak.
Right. And I will say, while I have not put the individual schools up there or the individual grade bands, schools are working on, they are paying attention to their individual things. If you're giving me a minute to pull up my dashboard here. And you said by grade level, I think.
While we waiting for that, then you're not gonna hurt our attendance by just not coming the last couple of days because you're about to be a graduating senior, are you? I just gotta check.
Today was senior skip day.
You went to school on senior skip day?
There were more seniors.
Grade.
Monday,
Yeah.
skip day, they close the school.
Grades.
Nobody.
I don't want to take up more time. What I'll do here is, rather than me waste your time while I'm trying to sort through all the different filters here. Oh, wait, I have it here. So grades with most, let's say chronically absent. The highest grade with chronically absent students is our current 9th grade group of students. We know they also persist as our lowest performing cohort of students. So you can see here. Sorry, I don't have this. I can't just magically throw it up there, but I will bring this data
that would
to
help.
June.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. And I will say our highest attendance cohort of students are our current 6th graders.
Wow,
Mhm.
that's great.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
building a strong.
And remind me which grade or cohort was the grade that was uninterrupted by COVID?
So that is our current,
Third graders.
I think it's our 4th and 5th graders. So this year's 5th graders have a 12 student, oops, hold on, very touch sensitive.
While you're doing that, I'm just wondering, Alden, do you have any thoughts about, like, for someone who's starting high school for the first time, those 9th graders, of how to, and again, is there any room for older grade levels to mentor them, or what that could even look like, or any thoughts about that? Because I know everybody's kind of taking care of their own stuff, right? I mean, it's hard to keep track, let alone, but I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts about how older grades could be more encouraging, since it is 9th grade that's struggling.
Yeah. I think going into the middle school while they're still at the middle school is really helpful. I think there have been some programming in the past that has had upperclassmen go to the middle school. Because I know we have like Rising Freshman Night and all these things at the high school, and we have the first day of school where seniors like help show people around, but then there's never really any follow-up with that, and we just sort of see them every day. And it's also kind of hard when upperclassmen try to connect with freshmen, because we're also not there a lot of the time because we're out with internships or college classes. So I think like proactively going into 8th grade classrooms, like starting before, like a semester before they even get to the high school would be a great idea, because then there's already that connection, and maybe like some sort of sports mentorship too, like not just going and talking with them, but making a team or making some sort of different kinds of connections to reach different kinds of people. And I know the play, I remember when I was in the play in 6th grade with high schoolers, it really helped me feel comfortable around older kids. And I know that we've done that in the past, and I don't think we did it last year, but just things like that, that make younger kids feel comfortable and feel like they have friends that are in the upper grades. But it is also hard since once they get up there, then a lot of those people are leaving or doing other things. But yeah.
So sorry to, oh, go ahead. Sorry, I'll just shift back. So this year's 5th grade, they have about 12% students that are chronically absent.
And what's the definition of chronically absent?
You have to be absent, I think it's a certain percentage of the school year. So it's not number of days, well, by the end of the year, it's a number of days.
Right.
It's like 18 days by the end of the year. Right, so, thank you.
What did you say, Ms. Manley?
10%,
Okay.
you know, out of 180 days. So,
Okay, yeah.
but it ebbs and flows throughout the year, right? Because if you have a student who, let's say in the month of October, comes down with mono, right, and they're out for like, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks straight,
Yeah.
right? They show up as chronically absent, you know, really early, right? But they also then have many months to kind of try to bound back, right? And so you can have a student who in the beginning of the year may be chronically absent, but they kind of outgrow it as the number of school days increases
yeah.
over
That
time.
wouldn't be excused absence, though?
Excuse still counts as absence, right? Excuse means you can get your work so that you can get your learning on, right?
You're still not
But
in the
in the
building.
eyes of the state, you're either present or you're absent, right? And now what makes it different is excuse means, you know, it wasn't of your own fault. It wasn't
Yeah.
like you were just saying, I don't feel like going to school today. And so then you're entitled to get all that makeup work and support for that. Okay, so we'll move on, and I'll try to bring the grade level and some additional interesting attendance facts next time along with
Yes.
our things. For the last and final thing, report, I'll just add an update for our Kent County Middle School project. For anyone who's following that closely, you'll see that Mr. Kirby and I were there, was it last week? The week before?
The week
The week
before.
before.
The week before.
That.
And the commissioners have asked that I continue to look at trying to reduce the square footage and the overall cost. Mr. Kirby and I met with Mr. Donahoe and his team Wednesday morning, along with Dr. Lever. And one of the things that I was really asking Mr. Donahoe to help clarify, you know, the state funding for square footage is not aligned to expectations of academic programming. And what he explained is their square footage is really their way of calculating a fair way of supporting all 24 school systems, right? Keeping in mind that state funds are supplemental, and by all means do we need that, for sure. But that they're not aligned to programming. It's his one team member said it's a funding formula, not a planning formula. So it's not planning for the fact that you need a library and the fact that you need, you know, different things in a school to make the academic program work. So that was a good meeting. I also asked, you know, were there schools built within the constraints of theirs? They said some. I asked, were there any middle schools built within the constraints? They said no middle schools been built just within the constraints of their square footage. So that was really, you know, the discussion in the meeting with Mr. Donahoe. So
Did he have an explanation for that? I mean, was it, I can't imagine somebody didn't want to build a middle school. Maybe the obstacles were too great. I mean, all the schools being built are not middle schools?
no, that's not
Okay,
what I said.
okay.
No, what I said is, are there any schools that are only built to the square footage that
Okay.
the IAC
Okay, yeah,
will support?
okay.
They said there are some, and I said, are there
No, I
any
got the rest of it.
middle
Yeah.
schools? And he said, his team checked and they said, no middle school's been built within the constraints of that square
Do the
footage.
county commissioners know that information?
Well, I've haven't talked with them yet since that was just on Wednesday. But what I am doing is Mr. Kirby and I are continuing to look at value engineering approaches to try to bring down the costs for our local tax dollars.
Which you have been
So-
doing, correct?
We have,
How many-
so
I don't want to cut you off. Keep
that's
going.
okay. Well, I was gonna say, so, and keep in mind, we did cut square footage a year ago.
Exactly. I was going to say, since I've been here, I know we've done it at least twice now.
Well, this would be the second time around square footage. So we cut square footage a year ago. Then we cut soft costs through value engineering. We continue to work with Dr. Lever around value engineering.
What's value engineering?
It's so, for example, like the floor tile, you know, if you go to buy floor tile, there's like, you know, your
Top of the line.
top of the
Yeah,
line,
okay.
middle of the
Yeah.
line,
Right, yeah.
bottom of the line. Value engineering is like, where do you get the best durability for your value, right? And so trying to squeeze, you know, every way to make this more affordable. Yeah.
I don't think we should go for cheap everywhere.
I
And I also
understand.
think that we could maybe take off some classrooms for future, you know, maybe next year we can add them on, to bring the cost down. I mean, have it set up where this is it, next year we can add more, because they're just going to keep fighting us to take away square footage.
Yeah, I understand reducing additional classrooms is a pretty significant design and endeavor. But I do hear what you're saying. You know, I am working with Mr. Kirby and Dr. Lever to look at how to make sure that we're trying to move this forward in a thoughtful way in partnership with everyone. It sounds easy. It's easy to say, not really that easy to do.
Again, I just don't want to go for cheap
I understand.
floor tile. I mean, let's not go to the bottom.
So,
Place the
so I've got a question.
building.
It's not as simple as saying, for example, narrow the hallway. I mean, cutting the square footage, well, I don't know, I'm asking you.
Right.
How significant is cutting the square footage in terms of, is it sending us back that we have to redesign?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's just delaying, I mean, do we have to come up with a whole new blueprint? You know,
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, 11,000 square feet, am I quoting that correctly, Mr. Kirby?
11,000 square foot out of a
Is
total.
significant.
Out of it, what's the
Yeah.
total? So,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah, so you're looking at, that's, you know, how large is a single classroom, Mr. Kirby? Right, so, you know, that, you know, if you're going to look at classrooms, that's about 785 square feet per classroom. You know, you reduce hallways, that, I will say, creates a safety issue,
you
you
know,
know?
I'm just saying, it's, I
yes.
don't think it's as simple as people just think you can take an X-Acto knife.
Right, or
trim
just
here
like
and trim there.
shrink or.
You just really can't.
We don't want to shrink. We don't want to do that to the point where it still risk us have to coming back to add on when growth does happen in this county, because our student enrollment is increasing. So what is their logic behind doing that? They still want to try to shave price? Because, and then I'll let you answer, because with this, we're still spending money prolonging shovels in the ground, correct?
It does go up the longer things go on. And I think the you know, the intention is to make as the most of taxpayer dollars, right? To make this as affordable as possible for the community, knowing that we have a limited tax base. I'm looking, I realized I was looking this way. I wanted to make sure I wasn't ignoring you.
They find an excuse every chance we come back with something to say, here we go with this now. You would think after getting the IAC to improve it to 75-25 plus the 5% we give for poverty being an 80-20, because that's what they said publicly, Trish, correct me if I'm wrong, at least twice, they would say yes without even thinking about it if we got it to 80-20. Here we are, 80-20, and now they say we'll worry about cutting the square footage. Not just a small tweak, a significant amount of 11,000, which I would assume throw more monkey wrenches in when shovels are on the ground. At some point, the county commissioners got to stop playing around and just approve it. There's nothing else to discuss.
I'm wondering, you know, with the request to downsize, how does that impact the potential for, because the goal is for it to be 5th through 8th.
Mm-hmm.
And is there, would that downsizing impact possibility of 5th through 8th?
Well, that's where I'm looking at the programming. So no, we're still going to go with the 5th through 8th
Yeah.
because we need the room in our elementaries for
Correct.
the early childhood expansion.
Because that's gonna grow.
Yeah, and that is growing. We've got wait
And
lists
that
for
growth-
the Garnett.
That growth equals money.
Yes.
It does.
You know,
it
that's
does.
the catch there.
Have they gave a timeline on when they will make a decision? Because have they completed their budget process?
It's not contingent on the budget. I spoke to Shelley myself, Shelley Heller. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, that approval could come at any time. It's not tied into a fiscal year budget. And
I don't want to speak for Shelley.
Yeah, that's what you told me.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah.
You know,
Trish, let me
I
ask
have
you
no
this.
reason to doubt what you said.
How long has this process been going on, Trish? The new school project?
Well, we took the initial vote in 2023.
Okay.
Ms. Dorsey, Mr. Rhodes, myself, Mr. Getz, and Ms. Sullivan were the board at the time. And that was after a full year of study
Yeah.
from all sorts of options. You know, at one point we had 8, and then we actually had 12 different options, because not only were we discussing the location, but it was also the grade configuration.
Yes.
You know, whether it was going to be 5th to 8th or 6th, 7th, and 8th. I mean, we discussed whether we had an 8th grade academy, whether we would put an addition on at the high school, out at the high school. I mean, I feel like you were a member of
And
the public
yes,
at the time, and
yes.
I can remember you sitting in the audience in one of those public meetings out at the high school.
Correct.
So,
So
yeah.
let me ask this. So that's at least since 2022, give or take a year. Were any of those current commissioners sitting on, serving at the time? Just 50?
Mr.
No.
Fithian was a commissioner.
When I came in, all of them came in.
Yeah, that's right, they were elected the same
they're
time.
on-
Yes.
Mr. Nick-
Except
yeah,
for
that-
Mr. Fillion,
Yeah,
who's been there
but he was,
28 years.
but he was reelected that same time, yeah.
Yeah.
So they have been very aware of this process since it's been started. Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
Well,
I thought I forgot they weren't there.
just to get back to Ms. McKee's question, I don't have a sense of timeline.
Yeah.
I think they are in the process of their operating budget. But I'll keep everybody updated as we move forward. So I just wanted to, since I met with Mr. Donahoe last week and went to the commissioners since we last met as a board, so
It's
that's where
been
we
there
are.
twice. Last night, but I was there, Mr. Rhodes and I both were there, both of those meetings. You went 2 weeks in a row.
Okay, I thought, was it, so twice since, okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask this. What if we just say, as a school system, we're not downsizing anymore? Then where we at? I agree, we should not have to be. Where will we be at?
I think that's a question for commissioners. I don't think I can answer that, right? Because I don't, you know, like I'm
No, I got you.
kind of like the worker bee in between the
think
two
you should-
boards. I
Yeah, the
can't,
term
I
is
wouldn't
into
speak for
open
all of
record.
you. I can't speak for all of them.
I think that what we need to ask them is, you know, after the downsize question, or after that gets answered or not, what's the next?
We know
Because
the numbers
we
are pretty
already know
stalled.
that there's gonna be another
Yeah,
request
stalled,
afterwards.
stalled.
And there will be one until someone else steps up and pays the whole bill.
That's not-
Because basically the foundational piece is they don't.
Well, on record, they said 80-20, and that's where we are.
Yes, I
That
will.
was their public statement on record.
If you can get into that, we'll.
We won't even have to think about it. That would be a yes. That was their public statement.
Well, I just wanted to update everybody. Again, Mr. Kirby and I will continue to work to try to figure out how to make the most of what we need to get accomplished and
How can the board support you? What do you need from us?
$32 million. I say that jokingly, everyone. I'll have to think about that, you know, because I'm trying to work through the
No, I get
process to
it.
make sure.
Yeah.
So, you know, in this
We
moment, I
want-
don't think
we don't
there's
wanna
not an
close
easy
any
answer.
door.
Yeah, not an easy answer right now, so. Okay, well, thank you, everybody, for letting me bring an update on that. And then
That's
moving
crazy.
on to prolonged state of emergency. So thank you, Ms. Jacomowitz. And I'll need a sign off before we send it. Prolonged. It's
Okay.
it's just time to renew.
Good evening, President McGee, Dr. McComas, members of the board. Tonight, I bring this forward for information only. This is a plan that was submitted to the board 2 years ago. And since that time, we are required to update it, just to revisit the plan, see if any major changes are needed. This plan is not the snow day plan. This is a prolonged emergency plan. So if schools were to shut down beyond 14 days, this plan would go into effect. There is an understanding that it is for 2 years, so if modifications need to be made, that is always an option as we move through the plan. The good news is that our plan is staying intact. It has been reviewed by each of the departments, and there are minor changes. The only change is indicated under the technology section, and that's really for clarification. For example, we have adopted and are putting our assessments on part of the new Performance Matters, which is a platform that's part of our assessment system. In the past, we were using pair assessments, so that little tweak was in there. On top of that, I think it's just a few language changes. For example, we had the word hotspots in there. That's no longer relevant. We do provide expanded Wi-Fi in the parking lots, and that is what's indicated in our plan as well. So they are really on page 16 are the only changes that we are submitting to the state. So at this time, I'll just ask if there are any questions
So
about.
I have a question, because I sit on the May Legislative Committee thing, and it may be in theirs, but new legislation this year allows the state superintendent of schools to declare a state of emergency. You don't need the governor. So is that reflected in this at all, or do we not need that?
We don't need it in here, but this is
Okay.
our response should
Okay.
the state superintendent
Okay,
indicate
I
that it's
gotcha.
need.
Okay, gotcha. Now,
And I just want to reiterate, this is for prolonged, right? So like, for example, if, I don't know, there's a hurricane and we need to close for a few days, this would not apply. This would be for like
Yeah.
a really long, like major catastrophe.
14 days or.
I gotcha. So this says it's just for information, no action.
It is.
Rest of it.
Yeah.
Okay, I gotcha.
I do have a question, just given how harmful the extended prolonged
Yeah.
plan, I mean, that caused a significant amount of harm to
And our data
students,
shows that.
state and nationwide.
Yeah.
Is there any talk at the state level of just never going here again? I understand this is a beautiful plan. Exactly. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You gotta do what the state tells you to do right now, and that's fine. I get that. But given the intense amount of harm that caused students for years, and we're still feeling the impact of that, is there
Yeah.
any logic at that level
Yeah.
that we should never, under any circumstances, go there again?
Yeah, I mean, and I'll ask Ms. Jacomowitz is the one who attends the meetings.
I
of the-
know,
of
and
these-
I mean,
then-
all
and
I
I'll
can
share
tell
my
you is they
comment
do give
afterwards.
guidance, and that guidance is what we use to develop our plan, but I hear you loud and clear, and I think you would have the majority of people on your side, saying the same thing. I will say, the one thing that would be completely different is we are so much more prepared than we have ever been. So I feel as though that is something, at least we're not going into this not having any clue how to pick up the pieces. And I think trying to be proactive is a step in the right direction. I agree with you. It is not ideal. It is not developmentally appropriate. And we'll just leave it at that.
Question.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
say we're more prepared than we have ever been because we're being more proactive? Like, what made you make that statement?
When COVID occurred, we had no plan in place. There was nothing. We had limited accessibility, no hotspots. Everything had to be developed as we moved
On the
together
fly.
and tried to talk to each other and figure it out.
Yeah.
And you may recall Kent County was one of the first school systems to bring people back in to try to pull this together, wearing masks and every other crazy thing that scarred us forever. But here we are. We don't ever want to be in that situation
we do
again.
not.
And hopefully we're laying a better foundation, and at least thinking about what needs to happen in the event of an emergency. There is a paper President McGee, that I am going to ask you for your signature, just stating that we have shared this, and it is showing that it's already been reviewed by the state as well. And in fact, I'll just leave this with you. You don't need to sign it on the spot. I just didn't want to forget, which is why I'm mentioning it while we are
Yeah,
all
Dr.
together.
McComas said.
Yes.
Right, and that's
Thank
just
you.
acknowledging that we did bring it to the board.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate, Ms. McKenzie, by all means, none of us, myself included, ever want to be back in that circumstance again. And I think, you know, in a catastrophic situation, our response, while we have a plan, we don't know what that next catastrophic event might be like. This past one was, you know, a pandemic. The next one could be, I don't know, you know, I mean, it could be something really, really different, in which case this plan may not even be able to be implemented. So I just offer that at least the state is forcing school systems to think through, well, what if the worst happens? What might you do? But what I do know from my Army background is when catastrophe happens, rarely is it similar 2 times in a row, right? Usually the next disaster is wildly different than the previous one. So I just offer that to say, I hear you. I too never want to go back there. Our data speaks to the impact, right? And I call that out all the time because it is so impactful. And, you know, but to me, I appreciate the state requiring us to think through it, but I also know whatever lurks out, hopefully 100 years or so from now, will probably be really different than this. So I don't know.
It's the preparedness that matters.
Yeah.
And just like you described, even our day-to-day drills have evolved. When I was in the classroom, we only had fire drills. Now we have fire drills, we have lockdown drills, we have Alice drills, we have, as my kindergartners say, tomato drills. That's tornadoes, right? I mean, we've got it all going on. Just, I think the more you learn, the more you have to adjust and be flexible and try to provide that safe environment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Thank
You, Ms. Jacomowitz.
Mr. Kirby.
All right, good evening, President McGee, Dr. McComas, members of the board. I've got before you our April 30th financial statements. So first up, you'll see our cash receipts so far for the year. Fund 1, we've got a total of about 36.5 million received. School construction, we've recently received our reimbursement for the Kent County High School tennis court project. So that's in the capital project fund now. For Fund 5, for food service, we're just shy of 1.4 million this year, giving us a total cash receipts at the end of April at about 38.2 million. So we scroll down to our current expense fund, Fund 1, of our 35 million that we had budgeted, we've got just shy of $4 million left in that fund at the end of April. And at the end, as always, we'll have our comparison to prior years to give you an idea of how that stacks up to last year's statements. Moving down to Fund 3, which is School Construction Fund, we still have a little bit of expenditures in here from Dr. Lever's services. These will be repaid by the county. Moving down to Fund 5, which is our food service fund. You can see of our $1.7 million budget, we've got about $128,000 left in that fund for the rest of the year. Next up, we'll have our restricted. So our grant funding of our 7.6 million, we've got just shy of 3 million left there. Just a note, a lot of these are multi-year grants, so a lot of them will carry into FY27. So that's why you'll see these numbers continue to fluctuate or continue to move down or possibly increase a little bit as we get closer to FY27. So that's just a reminder for restricted month to month, it can look different. And then finally, we've got our comparison chart. So up top here, you'll see where we are this time this year. So at the end of April, as I said before, we've got just shy of $4 million left. This time last year, we were at about $2.1 million left. So, so we were in a better spot in terms of being able to replenish fund balance, we think, at this point for going into FY27. All right, any questions for?
This is, are there any questions?
Yeah, just that difference between this year and last year at this point, that's about, yeah, I've just said $2 million difference. Anything that jumps out at you is like, this is where we were able to save or redirect to have that increase in money right now?
Yeah, so there's a few, positions that we either were able to not fill in certain areas. So those positions were in the budget, but unfortunately, we either couldn't find, FTEs for them, or just, people have left throughout the year that we had a full year budgeted for them. When they're replaced with typically long-term substitutes, obviously those come at a, slightly cheaper rate than a typical teacher would. Operationally, we've had quite a bit of savings in terms of thoughtfully spending on our buildings and maintenance, and and there was a few things when we zero-based last year that we we aimed conservatively, and as Dr. McComas mentioned earlier, that's part of where we were able to to shave a little bit more off of non-personnel going into FY27, because we had kind of some pretty conservative numbers last year. So those just kind of those combination of items, and this gap I think will narrow a little bit. May is a 3-pay payroll month, so so that gap will probably lessen a little bit when we compare at the end of May this year versus last year. So I don't foresee us having this exact $2 million gap when all is said and done, but I think we will have a pretty a pretty healthy balance. Yep.
Thank you.
Sure.
All righty, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kirby.
All right, and then my other item for you tonight, so this is our first read, so this is a new policy that we're going to put forward. It's a result of one of our COVID expenditure audits, essentially. So one of their recommendations was for us to have a formal policy for our financial record retention. So we asked around, and some counties have one, some counties do not have one, but we wanted to go ahead and put one in since it was a recommendation from the audit. So that way we can show them, that we took their, their request and
Right,
put it
yeah.
forward, so that way we can, kind of satisfy their requirement that they think we should have moving forward. So just to kind of overall summarize it for you, basically
It's a very short policy.
it's very short.
Two paragraphs.
We're going to have a follow-up procedure that goes into much more detail into all these items. But the short policy is basically we're going to do 7 years for all financial records. So there's some guidance with grants that can be slightly different, but in order to kind of cover ourselves, we're going to say 7 years, just blanket for everything, just to.
Did we not have any sort of
We had a-
written?
We had a
sort of thing?
practice, but
Okay.
not a written policy for.
Yeah,
And was that with the audit, we got, if I remember correctly, like 2 negative remarks, or is this?
So this, I think you're probably thinking of the OLA audit. So this was a different follow-up
Yeah.
audit.
Okay.
This was a COVID expenditure audit.
Okay, okay.
So slightly different, but this was one of their recommendations. So that's why we were bringing it forward.
all right.
And it's
so-
probably good practice
So
to
this
have
is
one.
just for information. Next month, you'll ask for our approval. Is that
Correct.
correct?
Correct, yep.
All righty.
And would the code then align with the new code structure? I don't know if that makes, I don't know, it's code DIAA, which I know we're moving towards a numbering.
Right, I will get it lined up with the proper
Number.
numbering system.
Gotcha.
I do one.
Mm.
Mhm.
Okay. All righty.
Thank you.
All righty. The
Oh, rework.
reorganization chart, is that back to you, Dr. McCombs?
It is. Mr.
Okay.
Ford, do you have that? Oh, can you send it? Okay, I will send it to you right now. Can you send it to him? Okay, thank you. So what we have here is our current organizational chart. This is the organizational chart that I inherited 2 years ago. What you'll see, all the boxes, I don't know how well people can see it or not on the screen, but all the boxes to the left of the screen in that sort of yellow-green shade are what I would call the business side of the house. So Director of Human Resources, Director of Budget and Finance, Technology, Director of Technology, Director of Transportation and Maintenance, and our Communications Specialist. Then in the center where you see some vertical organizational structures, we have our Director of Teaching and Learning, Ms. Jacomowitz, who has 3 coordinators who currently report to her. The bottom box that you see that's faded out, all the faded boxes are positions that actually live at schools. They do not live here in central office, but they are associated with one of our central offices for programmatic purposes. So the one under the Director of Teaching and Learning at the bottom, you see teacher for ESOL and Title III grant management. So that teacher lives every day at a school, but will support us with our system-wide ESOL program. The purple column is our Director of Special Education. She has at the central level 1 coordinator of special education to help support all the system-wide responsibilities. And then underneath you see infants and toddlers, IEP facilitators, other related services, and school psychologists. Again, those 4 bottom positions their days are spent at schools. They're not here in central office unless they are called to a meeting or a planning function or a grant function. Next column over, you see Director of Student Services. That's Dr. Walker. She has 1 coordinator of school safety and student mental health. And she has 1 pupil personnel worker who supports us around our absenteeism and attendance efforts, and our pupil personnel workers, the role that when we have a case that we need to take the court, that's the position that does that work. You'll see 2 light blue squares under that. That is our school counselors. Again, they are at schools full-time, but Dr. Walker, because of licensure, also participates in supervision and evaluation of those, and the same with school social workers. Then you'll see to the right of that, like a golden colored box, that is our supervisor of CTE and accountability. That means the accountability for Blueprint. So that position serves as our official coordinator for Blueprint purposes with the state. And then the 5 squares to the far right represent our principals in each of our 5 schools. And so you sort of see how that is structured. What am I changing? What I'm really changing is that centerpiece right here that I drew a circle around. And so the school supervision, principals will still directly report to me. Our business directors inside of the house will still directly report to me. This center section here, what I am proposing is that I create an assistant superintendent. I'm labeling it of learning. Some systems call it of curriculum instruction. Some systems call it of instruction. Some systems would call this the chief academic officer. I am calling it the assistant superintendent of learning because that's what matters most, is our achievement. And so this position would oversee and help break down silos and help to really focus more braided coordination of instruction across content areas and student services, whether that's services for special education plans, services for 504 plans, services for English language plans, services for gifted and talented students, and of course all of our social and emotional services through counselors, social workers, and community schools work. So that this position would directly oversee those and would be my assistant to support principals and my assistant in collaborating with the business side of the house. Additionally, should for some reason, that whether it's me in this case, but organizationally, in the absence of a superintendent, this would assume the number 2 position in the organization. So, for example, if I went on a family vacation for a week or two, and I could leave this number 2 person and say, you're running the ship while I'm actually spending a little time with the people I love, as an example. Or if I'm across the bay at a state meeting and can't be reached by phone. We had an instance earlier this year. I was at a state meeting, and I know our folks were they were at the college, and there was something happening, and they had to have a security thing. Ms. Jacomowitz couldn't get in touch with me because in the state meeting, I actually am old-fashioned, turned off my ringer and didn't have the text up in front of me. I turn my phone down typically. So I was incommunicado, not intentionally, but then this person would be the person who could be of service and support. You'll see that really organizationally, I just put boxes over the business side and boxes over the principal. They are not new positions. They're just kind of identifying that this is a group of employees who will report directly to the superintendent. The business side is a group. So when you look at those 2 corner boxes there in the second row, they are not positions. That's just identifying that this is a group, rather than having this long stretched out chart that's, then it's harder to read when you're looking at it. And then so the other thing I'm changing, because over time the central office has been reduced and reduced and reduced. So for example, we, as we had some community members advocating for our fine arts program, we currently do not have somebody to shepherd the fine arts program, right? We don't have a supervisor of fine arts. We don't have a supervisor of social studies. All of these 3 positions under Ms. Jacomowitz's office, as positions have been reduced, the scope of responsibility has grown and grown, in addition to the reporting has grown and grown by the state. And so I am level setting that those coordinators, we currently have we have 5 coordinators and 1 supervisor. I will level set them all to be supervisors. And then, so the yellow just highlights that change here. And then you see how the assistant superintendent will basically be my right hand to support schools or collaborate with the business side of the house. So that is my proposed reorganization. The job responsibilities of the supervisors under the teaching and learning team right now, I will reassess those as we have one of the supervisory positions is coming up as a vacancy. And so I'm looking at reorganizing who has what task responsibilities, but they would all be the same level.
So in this, is anything being added then to the central office? It is just an organization.
It is just a reorganization. And in fact, I want a vacant position we had since Mr. Kirby was promoted. I'm actually reducing by 1 position and giving that to a school to support and to
That's
increase
Galena,
that. That's
right?
Galena.
To put them on par with the
Yep, to make sure that they have the same as the other 2 elementary schools. So technically, I'm reducing central office by a position, reorganizing. I'm taking a vacancy as that's a function of a retirement, and recrafting what that FTE, the reporting lines of responsibility. And then I'm level setting the coordinators. So all of that is within the confines of what we currently are budgeting. So I'm not blowing up central office and adding 15 positions.
And it's not.
I could use that, but I'm not doing that.
Is
Sorry.
there any impact on the budget?
No, it's really cost neutral.
Okay.
Because it's using the positions that we have. Since the assistant superintendent is a brand new, I'll be able to bring that in at a lower cost. And then that lower cost difference can help cover some of the level set.
Question. What, I'm not gonna say what the community would say. For a small school district like ourselves, a lot of people in the community have said, we don't need a assistant superintendent. In comparison to other school districts, smaller or relatively close to our size, do they have assistant superintendent?
The other systems similar to us have assistant superintendents. Of course, larger systems have multiple assistant superintendents. So larger systems would have an assistant superintendent of instruction. They would have an assistant superintendent of schools, depending upon the number of schools that they have, and an assistant superintendent of operations. In developing the job description for the assistant superintendent, I reviewed the assistant superintendent positions that exist in Queen Anne's, Talbot, Caroline, Wacomico, Worcester.
What about small systems like Garrett or Summer, or a
I-
similarly small one?
Yeah, I did not reach out to Garrett.
Well-
Did you reach out to Garrett?
We had that at one point, and it's just been that we had the superintendent, and then we had the assistant superintendent of administrative services or operations, and then the instruction, and then this 20 years worth of belt tightening, I mean, that whole level of middle management was eliminated.
Right. I would offer Mr. Queen that anyone who doesn't think that we need that, I would ask them to come do my job for 1 month. Come do my job, and then let me know. I have, been in many school systems. This is not an unreasonable line of reporting. It's not anything outrageous. It's not anything crazy innovative. It's not adding positions, but it's beginning to try to rebuild us for excellence. When I first came on board, Mr. Hushin said something to me that really was resounding because I found it to be true. Actually, I thought when I first came on board, I was here probably about 6-8 months, and we were working through our deficit budget situation, and I was just really aghast at how little we have to support instruction.
Yeah.
When you were discussing wanting to see the different services braided together and working together, is there a way to measure an outcome? Is it to know if people are working more collaboratively? How would you measure success with something like
Yeah,
that?
to me, the key is student achievement in our student groups. We need to see not only just achievement across the board increasing, but we need to see students with services, their achievement needs to increase. So to me, that's the key measurement. Because we can say that a lot of adults are collaborating, but if it's not producing the outcome, it doesn't count, in my book. And that's a hard reality for all of us. And now I will say what I've always experienced is progress is made with fits and, it's like you take 2 steps forwards and then the next year, it's like a half step back, and then you move forward. So I don't want to make any false claims that achievement will just skyrocket instantaneously. But to me, what I have seen is we have this lack of coordinated service at the point of delivery, which is each student in the classroom, right? So it's kind of like if Mary McComas needs service and support, I have to go to you to get this service and you to get something else, And what we really need to do is bring that together in a seamless way in the classroom. That's easy to say, that's not easy to do. It's going to take change in mindset. It's going to take a lot of intensive collaborative planning at the school level among teachers and service providers. And we need to build up our general education teachers' capacity to be a first point service delivery person, right? So I use myself all the time. As a high school, 10th grade high school world history teacher, I had students in every period of my instruction that had students with special education needs, 504 needs. At that time, we really didn't have a lot of English as second language students at that school. But I never once ever had a co-teacher. I never once had a special educator in my classroom to provide services. It was on me to do so. And I took that responsibility very seriously, and I learned what accommodations and modifications I needed to ensure were in place every day for my students. I'm not saying I was the rock star, but I understood it was my responsibility. It was no one else's responsibility, right? And when I had a chance to consult with a special educator, that was fantastic, right? But I think we need to really build that culture around every single educator as a service delivery provider. It's a matter of coordinating that, and that's a mindset, and it takes time and planning. I'm very proud of the work that we've done this year in sixth grade math around bringing together special education and our content areas and working directly with their classroom teachers around deeply planning for students with service needs. I will say one more little story and then I'll move on because I am passionate about the changes that we need to make in our classroom. I think about students with services. I'll use a personal story of mine. When I married my husband, he was caring for his mother who was a widow and one of his brothers who was had pretty severe special needs. My brother-in-law at that time, he had traumatic brain injury as a child, and then along the way he developed seizures, and because of medication, he ultimately lost use of his legs and one of his arms. So he was wheelchair bound. And so when I met my husband and became part of the family, one of the first things I learned is we take care of those with special needs first, right? We don't go to the car and get in the car and look at my brother-in-law, whose name was Derek, he's since passed on, who's sitting on the sidewalk in the wheelchair, right? We don't get in the car and say, Derek, you getting in the car? We put Derek in the car first, and then we fill in around him. And so that guides the way I think about students with services, right? We need to take care of the neediest first and plan accordingly, not as an afterthought. And so that's what I really am. Now that's a big ask, but that to me is what I have found is I have poured myself into being in the schools and this year in alignment with our strategic plan, that it's like, I really need that right hand to help me with that piece so that I can more equally focus on supporting all of the schools. So thank you. And I'm sorry if I went on, but I'm very passionate about the work that we need to do that matters most.
You should be.
Thank you.
Sounds
Oh,
This is an opportunity, I mean, that, I don't say landed in our lap, but time to do it. I mean,
Yeah.
because there are changes in our.
Yep.
All right, so I am looking for a motion to approve Dr. McComas's proposed reorganization.
Make a motion to approve the KCPS reorganization.
Mr. Queens made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Oh,
I think Ms. Dorsey jumped in there. It's
Okay,
Ms.
thank
Dorsey
you.
has the. Ms. Dorsey, it's just sometimes difficult to hear.
Yeah.
Is there any more discussion? I call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Alrighty, so.
Thank you.
I'm looking at the next thing for us is board discussion, but I did see Mr. Wall get up. And what you probably don't know is we changed our format. And we only have one, but I'm going to allow you, but we only now have one opportunity for public participation. But no one took that, so if you'd like to come up, that'd be great. Alrighty.
Because then if someone wants to talk about what you just discussed, they can't really address that. I think it's not counterintuitive, but.
I would suggest we just, since it's not on the agenda, and you could just vote to amend the agenda.
Yeah, make a motion.
Okay,
And
alrighty,
that way it's.
Kosher.
alrighty. I'm looking for a motion to amend the agenda to add a public participation. Is there a motion for that? Alrighty, Ms. Dorsey's made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Rhodes made the second. Is there any discussion? Okay, call for the vote. We're amending the agenda to add public participation for this meeting.
Or, yeah, so
Alrighty, so all in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Alrighty.
Do I vote? Okay.
You can vote.
Was
it approved
or not?
Just a reminder,
Thank you.
you're,
just a reminder.
Yeah, you need to time me. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Trish.
speakers should limit their comments to 3 minutes. Comments about the actions or statements of individual staff members are not appropriate for public comments and should be referred to the superintendent of schools or processed through available channels. If submitting written testimony, speakers are requested to provide a copy to the president. Please remember that this is an opportunity for the community to address their comments to the board. It's not an opportunity for dialogue. If you have questions that need an answer, please contact the superintendent or write a letter to the Board of Education, and a response will be sent back to you. So you have 3 minutes, Mr. Wall, and Dr. McCombs is going to time you. All righty, there you go, sir.
Ready?
Yeah.
I'm on the clock?
Yep.
Good. By the way, I have to comment about your change in agenda, because if you're talking about something and someone wants to comment on what you just discussed, they've got to wait a whole month in order to make a comment about that. So maybe you want to revisit this whole thing about when you can comment. I would like to.
I've taken up your time, sir.
Yeah. I would like to address John Queen's comment about the county commissioners and what they're trying to do with downsizing the building. And Superintendent McComas and Mr. Kirby can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the concept here is that we're working still in fiscal year 27 on a 50-50 cost split. The 80-20 doesn't come into 2028. So we would have to borrow money. According to what the budget workshop was last week at the commissioner meeting, they would have to borrow money in order to put shovels in the ground. I think the suggestion was, can we reduce the square footage of the school right now to get shovels in the ground and not borrow money? And then fiscal year 28, when we're at a 80-20 split, then expand the footprint of the school. I have to admit that that's a pretty good idea, not a dumb idea, because you're limiting funds now. You would have to borrow money, which is taxpayer funded. It doesn't get a 50-50 split if you borrow money. Correct me if I'm wrong, but any square footage outside of the IAC criteria doesn't get a 50-50 split, doesn't get an 80-20 split, correct? Correct?
Oh, sorry.
And
I was gonna say-
I believe that that's the point here, that anything outside of the square footage limitations of the IAC is not a cost split. So the commissioners are saying, we want to fund this, right? And I'm not here to talk for the commissioners. I was at the meeting and I know what I heard. And they're saying, okay, we're going to have to borrow money, but if there's a way to reduce the square footage so that we can afford to pay for the school, and then when we get our 80-20, or if Mr. Donahue is capable of getting us 95 to 100%, because he's still working on that, and maybe get even more money from the state, why not plan it so that we have X amount of square footage, and then when we get more money from the state, expand that square footage so that we're not funding the cost of that. John, if you take a look at the video, if you ask the commissioners, I think that's the concept and what they're trying to do here, which is actually a pretty smart idea. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
All righty, we're going to move on to board discussion.
First, I just wanted to say thank you to Dr. McComas and everyone who helped with the budget. It did feel kind of anticlimactic for us to say, okay. But it was, we're not in a deficit. It sounds like you guys really did a good job of making the most of what we had, and I really appreciate that, and I'm really happy about that. And it was just a lot less stressful and less sad than last year. So I just wanted to say thank you. Otherwise, I don't know, prom was this weekend. It was really fun. It was at the Rock Hall Firehouse. Senior stuff is coming up. Senior Awards Night is this Wednesday for anyone who wants to come. It's a really good chance to see all the scholarships we've got, and I don't know, I think it's going to be fun. It's this Wednesday at 6. Graduation will be May 29th, and I think all you guys will be there. And I just wanted to make sure I answered your question that you had earlier about connection with 8th grader raising freshmen. If you wanted me to elaborate any more on that, it was kind of spontaneous, so I just sort of said what came off the top of my head, but I can also reach out to other people, and I have a brother who's going to be a rising freshman next year, so if you wanted me to ask him about that, or, whatever, just wanted to follow up on that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, I can do that. That's all I have, I think.
I have a question. Will the June meeting be your last meeting?
I think so. I think in the past years, that's the meeting that the new SMOB is introduced, and that's the final meeting of the acting one. Yeah.
You're a trailblazer. For to serve
Two
2
times,
years.
two times.
Two times mob, yeah.
That's pretty awesome. First junior
Mhm.
and the first 2 terms. So you've set a pretty high bar, my friend.
I'm sure
Alrighty.
whoever comes next will be great.
Mr. Rhodes?
I understand some of our sports teams are doing pretty well.
The girls lost in sudden death. Yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah.
Sorry about that overtime.
Girls look cross, right? Yeah.
And Dr. McComas, I know you've been working hard and keep it up. I think you're doing a good job. It's
Thank
a
you.
tough job for everyone, so
Thank you.
that's all I have to say.
All righty. Mr. Queen?
I'll say this to the community. I am a board member that will hear your concerns, but I would like for people to do more due diligence on educating themselves on what is actually going on and why it's going on when it pertains to certain issues. John Queen, the board member of Kent County Public Schools, will not fill social media rumors and gossip. As I tell y'all privately, and I told a few of y'all, I will say it publicly, so you know I'm not playing. I will allow my superintendent and her team to do their due diligence and vet all concerns in the day-to-day operations. And as a board member, when it comes across my desk, that's when I will be able to give an actionable input or vote. Other than that, do not come to John Queen with Facebook and social media rumors. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Queen, for that.
Well, you know what,
Yeah,
if I can
social
just
media.
jump, I just want to jump in on that. So I sat through a really interesting meeting about 2 weeks ago, and they talked about the difference between superintendent's job and the board member's job.
Yeah.
Our job is not to be problem solvers.
Correct.
That's somebody else's job. And I think that is a huge misconception for people who run for school board
Yes,
and for the community in general. That is not our job.
yes.
So, all righty.
And honestly, I thought it was my job when I ran.
Yeah. Gotcha. All righty. Ms. Dorsey?
Yes, I didn't really have too much to say, but I am gonna comment on, as far as this has been talked about over and over, about the square footage of the school being reduced. In other words, the layout that has been done and paid for, being reassessed and paid for again. And we also was talking about how that we have been in this since 2022, possibly, I think it's 2022 anyway, because I don't know when I came in exactly, but it's around that time. So they were already talking about it then. And we've had plenty of meetings pertaining to each step that we've taken, you know, where the school was gonna be, how it was gonna be built, what the square footage would be. I think that was the time to step in and say, hey, we don't want this square footage, we don't want it to be that. That would have saved us money on the evaluation or whatever you call it when they do the layout. It's not the time at the end when now we're being charged or and will end up incurring different charges because we're prolonging the process. We're putting it off. And it's causing us to pay more money to put it off. You know, the point is that the school, the middle school, the children cannot remain in. You have to have somewhere for them. Are we going to sow into the our children's education? Are they worth that much? We can sow into the jail all day long, you know. But to prevent criminals, we need to show our children that we believe in them. You know, we need to decide that we're going to sow something into the educational system, because every time that it's time to sow something into the educational money into the educational system, it seems to be a problem. You know, it's this excuse and that excuse, but yet we want Kent County to have a future. But you want to cut them off at the legs. In other words, we want you to be able to do what we need you to do when you get older, but we could care less how you get there. And I'm not trying to criticize and say, oh, well, she said they don't care. Well, to me, it's not a whole lot of caring going on, but everything we want to hide behind taxpayers' money. Well, I pay taxes regardless, whether I see good results from it or not. I would rather pay taxes and see it go to the educational system of our children so King County can have a future. But a lot of times people want to skip the foundational piece and then they expect to have good results. It does not happen. It doesn't happen. So if you don't educate the children properly so that they can go on and be successful and come back to King County and help build, I mean, I'm just saying, we cannot cut and reduce the square footage because it's just another excuse. I was right there, okay? If you wanted to talk about the square footage, it should have been talked about then. That was last year. I didn't hear anything about that. But now all of a sudden it's the square footage. The building is falling down around our children. It is dangerous. That's what we need to consider. I think they're going to pay over years, right? Like 3 years or more.
Yeah.
So everything is not due when they put the shovel in the ground. Now, I don't know what percentage. I mean, we was 50-50. So what you would have had to pay, they put the shovel in the ground a while back, was a lot more than you have to pay now. I don't know. Me, myself, I'm very disappointed. I've sat on this board for 4 years and we haven't been able to even accomplish the middle school. And the middle school is not repairable. So what are we going to do with our children? Somebody needs to answer that question. What is your plan if you're not going to okay the middle school? They don't care. Because that should be the first question to be answered. That right there. What are we going to do with them? Where are we going to put them? Do we have another solution? Because if we do not, we have to go with what we have. And I think we've been blessed to get this much money so that you only have to pay the 20%. You can't expect to get it for nothing. You don't ask them, look, you need the jail or you need, it's a string of black SUVs out there right now that I didn't see last year or the early part of last year, all strung all across the parking lot. How much did you ask them to come up with? I'm trying to get us to do something for the youth before they become prisoners. Because you know how y'all used to talk about the prison pipeline? Well, if you want to prevent it, then we have to be interested in educating our children.
That's fact.
And then put them into a place that make them feel like they are of value. I mean, come on. I think there might be a couple rodents in school, right? Do you want them to feel like they're no better than a rodent? I'm just.
Thank you, Mr. Russell.
Well said.
Ms. McKenzie?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I appreciate what you're saying, Ms. Dorsey, and I wholeheartedly agree that our children are 100% worthy of our investment, and we absolutely need to support their future and future generations of children. I mean, because a new school will be good for 50 plus years to come.
Agreed.
And it can mean the difference in the direction our county takes, and I certainly hope our county is mindful of a bright future for all people of all generations, children, families, not just wealthy retired individuals.
Facts.
And so, one of the things I wanted to ask you separately, with the disparity that still exists within the blueprint's investment in high quality and diverse teachers, neglecting the fact that our state is increasingly getting more and more students that need support services, which needs high quality and diverse staff, not just teachers.
Right.
Is there, are superintendents around the state, saying we need to invest just as much and so because we have more need for support staff, to support teachers, because again, it's the need for services is not declining.
Right.
It's increasing and it's becoming overwhelming, and yet the blueprint seems to want to ignore that reality, and which then causes us to not be able to, again, that disparity exists between when both are equally needed. I mean, I work in a school with students with extreme support needs, not comparable, to what we experience in Kent County Public Schools, but I understand firsthand how essential support staff are. And it really hurts to not be able to recognize them at the level that they deserve, because the blueprint is so myopically focused on one aspect of individuals that impact student achievement. It isn't just teachers. Teachers is a primary, but to ignore all these other supports that are in place that are needed every single day is foolish at best. And so I don't know if any conversations are happening. What can this board do to say students in Kent County have greater needs? Where do we communicate that to the AIB? Where can our community communicate that, to the AIB? Like how does that, can we get some kind of guidance on that?
Sure. Well, I will say it is a conversation among superintendents, right? So we very much acknowledge that the blueprint focuses on specific, teachers really specifically, and that all the other pieces to making schools fantastic are really left on the curb. So we as superintendents do discuss that quite often. I would say in terms of advocacy, excuse me, in terms of advocacy, any advocacy to MSDE and the AIB directly, I think is always beneficial. And there is great expectation, I would say, that there will be changes to the blueprint legislation next year. I don't have a crystal ball, so I don't know what changes they would be. But I think, every single superintendent anticipates that there will be changes next year. I think we all have different maybe hopes or thoughts around what parts of the blueprint to see change in legislation. Part of what MSDE, aside from blueprint, is doing to try to help with diversification of all positions is they really have invested a lot of grant money in Grow Your Owns to try to build up a pipeline for people, not just in teaching positions, but, in IA positions to kind of attract them in through scholarship opportunity to work on their para certifications. So I think MSDE, the state superintendent, really does see like this need to invest in the pipeline of people who serve in schools in a lot of different ways. Now, in terms of us locally, we have discussed with the support professionals association that we will engage in a salary study next year to analyze how our salaries for support personnel compare to others within the region to make sure that we're staying competitive. Our speakers last time really spoke to the need for a living wage, which of course is more than hourly minimum wage. And I think that will be a guiding cornerstone of our collaborative work next year. So I hope that I answered that in sort of a multitude of ways, like locally what we can do to support and try to attract talent into our support IA positions, what our state superintendent is doing, and then legislation wise, I think any advocacy, perhaps MABE as well, could be a source of advocacy at that state level around recognizing that yes, the research shows the two most important things for student achievement is the quality of the classroom teacher and the quality of the principal, but we know the quality of classroom instruction is anchored in many support personnel and their ability to have training on intervention programs, their ability to have trainings for individual support needs, because every child might, have, let's just naturally look at Dr. Keene, because I know we talk often about individual cases and how individual students may require their support staff to have specialized training. So I hope I answered that in a variety of ways.
I just think I would like, because people do get frustrated and it's hard to understand the issues that really do affect us so severely here locally, and then how to be able to communicate those to who are actually making those decisions, which is far removed
Yeah.
from where we are here. And to be able to say, this is who you need to reach out to. I think that's the piece that I would like to have a better
Yeah.
understanding.
Yeah. I can get you the context. I think a really important place to advocate is the AIB. I do, because they have, they sit not under MSDE, but, shoulder to shoulder with MSDE. And it really, I think, if you can bring those two state level organizations together, you can do some things, right? And I would say, the state MSEA, I think our support professionals really piggyback a lot with the state teachers union. But I think, building their capacity, because instructional assistants and inclusion assistants and, they matter. They matter to your point every day. And if you're in a classroom, if you're supposed to have an IA with a particular student or in a particular classroom setting, and they're not it matters. You feel it. And the students feel it in their learning. So you're welcome. I will get those to you, but
All righty. So just to sort of wrap things up, piggybacking a little bit on what Alden said, it's a frenetic last couple of weeks of school, especially for soon-to-be graduates. The senior awards are Wednesday night, 6 o'clock. Graduation is Friday morning, May 29th. The high school is bringing back baccalaureate the night before, which we haven't had for a very long time. There's been a lot of schools are having the culminating activities. I feel like Miss McKenzie and I were out at the high school every night last week. I Thursday afternoon went to Kent County Middle School. They had a 4-week after-school program. They did cosmetology one day. It was with Boys and Girls Club. I went to the culminating activity with culinary, which was amazing. Those kids not only made a meal, they served it to the staff. They learned the proper way to serve and clean up a table. It was really, and they were so into it. So it just shows you, if you offer kids, they will embrace those opportunities. I'm not going to pontificate a lot on the middle school. What I want to say is that I think it's very clear that a lot of thought went into the decision that put the train on the tracks. A decision that has been supported and reaffirmed by 2 different boards of education and the superintendent, who is taking her leadership from us. She could have easily said, well, that was Dr. Couch's thing, but she, we're all in this together. I want to thank Mr. Rhodes for sort of leading the protest. Mr. Rhodes, Miss McKenzie, and I have all been standing out there dodging traffic at the Walgreens intersection in the morning, holding up a sign reminding people that we want a middle school in Chestertown. That's the linchpin of so much change in operations. I feel like, it wasn't until July 15th, because I know exactly what day it was. It was the day after our regular meeting. We had a combined meeting with the commissioners last year at Kent County Middle School. That was the first time I'd heard about putting a middle school in the old Wharton Elementary School building. It will not work because all of our 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders will not fit in that building. So we'd have to revamp that. If we move the middle school to Wharton Elementary School, the central office is stuck here for life. That's part of the reorganization, is to get us back, because there ain't nothing central about Rock Hall.
We love you though, Rock.
Yeah, we love you, but yeah, nothing personal, Miss Manley. And we're unified, which I think makes our plight reassuring, and at the same time it's frustrating. I don't, and one other thing I want to make clear, because I think there's some misunderstanding by maybe some of our, I don't necessarily mean our commissioners, but other people's in position of decision-making in the Kent County, and also the public. The Kent County Board of Education decides where the middle school goes. That is, Just saying, that
No,
is,
that's
that,
facts.
that's
Go
our,
ahead.
our decision. Some people seem to think that somebody else is entrusted with that decision,
Exactly.
but it's us. So, I don't think anybody sitting here has changed their mind about where we want the middle school to go and what the middle school should look like. And hopefully, I have a lot of confidence and respect in the work that Dr. McComas and Cray are doing to try to bring a peaceful resolution to that with the funding partners so that we can make that happen. Because we do owe that to the next generation. You know, when someone says that they are supportive of education, I'm not quite sure what that looks like for them, but for me, that looks like a state-of-the-art, brand-new building as compared to the one that's been sitting there for 75 years on Campus Avenue.
Fact.
So that's that. So just a reminder, we got a few things coming up between now and the next time we meet, all related to graduation.
Yes.
But just a reminder, the next monthly meeting will be held on Monday, June 8th, beginning at 5:30 PM with open session. Open session will be immediately followed by the board members going into closed session. The open session will resume at 6:30 PM. The meeting will be held in the central office here on Boundary Avenue. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Mr. Queens made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mackenzie, second. Is there any more discussion? I call for the,
Great discussion with everybody individually. Everybody.
I call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Ms. Swanson?